Appreciate you taking the time to learn a little bit more about the University of Alberta. I think how we'll structure this is I'll talk a bit first about our location and the city that we're located in. And then we can talk a bit more about the programs and some of our research areas. Then we can connect on some of the campus supports and services that are here on campus for international students. And then we can go through what the standard application process is if you decide that you would like to study at the University of Alberta. So first, looking at the map of Canada, we are on more of the western side of Canada. We are in the province of Alberta. And so here you can see like the little inlet there for Alberta. We are in the city of Edmonton. So Edmonton is the capital city of Alberta. So it's kind of the government center of our province. And you can see we're kind of right in the middle, close to the Rocky Mountains as well. And you can see Calgary there, which is about a 3-hour drive from Edmonton. So a little bit about the province of Alberta. I don't know if any of you caught the webinar for Calgary, but Alberta is known in Canada as being one of the strong provinces in terms of the economy. So we are the energy province of the country. So we have a consistently strong economy, lots of job opportunities. We're fortunate not to have a provincial sales tax like other provinces do. And as you can see from the photo, there's a lot of beautiful areas to explore in the province as well. So there's the Rocky Mountains, but then there's also the Badlands in southern Alberta as well. So it's a great province to explore. So a little bit about the city that the campus is located, Edmonton. So like I said, we're the capital city. It's about 1 million people. We are considered Canada's festival city. So what that means is just it doesn't matter what time of the year, there's always something going on here in Edmonton. Whether it's in the summer, there's lots of music festivals and bands that come through here. We have the second largest fringe festival in the world and lots of winter festivals as well, just to get people out and enjoying the outdoors. It's a very diverse, multicultural city. There is a big welcome event for all new international students who start here in the fall semester, not just for the University of Alberta, but students at all our post-secondary institutions in the city. Because we are the government center and kind of the middle of the province, we are a major economic hub. We have a clean, safe environment. Actually, there's right next to campus is the River Valley Trail System. So it's the second largest urban park area in North America, actually. We have a lower cost of living, especially in comparison to some of the larger cities in Canada, like Toronto and Vancouver. And there's lots of facilities and supports for families as well. So if you are considering coming to study, but you have a spouse or children that you need to bring along as well, it's a very easy system in terms of healthcare and education for your family to access. So now a little bit about the University of Alberta. We are consistently one of Canada's top 5 universities. We have 18 different faculties and over 500 different grad programs, close to 40,000 students, and 15% of those are international students. Second highest research funding in Canada. So, and you can see that when you go around campus, a lot of the facilities and buildings are constantly being upgraded and new buildings popping up and lab facilities. Globally, we're ranked number 51 for the most international university in the world. So in terms of our student population, but also our faculty population and research collaborations and student exchange opportunities. And we're also ranked number 87 for graduate employability. So our Faculty of Graduate Studies and Research, they do a really great job of preparing students for professional development. So preparing for, okay, what happens after you graduate? Are you prepared to go out in the job market, and what are you going to do with your degree after. So here is just a photo of our main campus. So you can see the river, the North Saskatchewan River, runs kind of in the middle of the city. So campus is on the south side of the river, and then there's the bridge right there that connects to the downtown. And there's also a train system as well that runs from the north end to the city to the south. So here are the, the different faculties that do offer graduate programs. Like I said, we do have 18 faculties. These are the main ones for graduate studies, though. What I'll do is, because there's not enough time to kind of go through every single one, so I'll just go through some of the bigger ones, some of the larger programs and faculties. But I do encourage you, if there's a faculty on there that I didn't have time to cover, please check out our website. There's lots of excellent programs. I just don't have time to cover them all. But we'll first start with our Faculty of Engineering. It is one of our largest faculties on campus. Lots of different specializations like biomedical, chemical. Chemical is actually in the top 100 in the world. Civil, computer, electrical, environmental as well is ranked quite well. Materials, nanotechnology, and one of the reasons why there's a lot of research here for nanotech is we have the National Institute for Nanotechnology, which is a Canadian funded facility here on campus. So we have researchers from across Canada that use our facilities. Our mining engineering program is ranked number 12 in the world. Environmental, 9, chemical, 35. And the petroleum engineering program is Canada's largest and oldest. So our Faculty of Science, it consists of 7 different departments: biology, chemistry, computing, earth and atmospheric, math, physics, and psychology. And psychology kind of has 2 different research areas. So it has the science aspect, but then in our Faculty of Arts, there's also a psychology department in there. We do have the Centennial Center for Interdisciplinary Science. So that's a newer building here on campus where a lot of our science departments are located, and the labs and facilities. We're ranked number 3 in the world for artificial intelligence research, number 5 for geology, and number 3 for paleontology. So lots of interesting and unique programs here. And then our Faculty of Agricultural, Life, and Environmental Sciences. It's kind of a unique program, and it's an interesting combination of research areas. Some of the bigger ones are agriculture, food, and nutritional science. There's kind of a newer food business management program that's involved in that. Renewable resources touches on things like environmental economics and policy, land reclamation, and we have an excellent forestry program as well. And then we also have a really unique program in human ecology that touches on things like clothing, textiles, material, but also topics like families and social systems and aging. So medicine, dentistry, that's again a huge faculty here on campus. We're known internationally for our medical education programs, and clinical education is always ranked quite high in the world. Some of the research areas, especially like diabetes, neuroscience, pediatrics, cardiovascular, excellent programs. Number 6 in the world for transplantation research. There is a teaching hospital here on campus. And we also have a new building for students who are doing programs in things like nursing and pharmacy and pharmaceutical sciences as well. And then our School of Business. So we are one of the top 4 business schools in Canada, and we're in the top 100 in the world. We do have some unique MBA programs. These are kind of, some of these have been revamped and are quite new. So areas such as energy finance, innovation and entrepreneurship, operations and business analytics, public sector and healthcare management. That is a new one that we're seeing an increasing need for. Strategy and consulting, and real estate as well. So in addition to the MBA program in business, they also have a PhD program as well. So like I said, I don't have time to kind of go through every single faculty and department. So feel free, check out our website. If you go to this link and just type in your research area, you should be able to find which department is most applicable. But like I said, like if you go back and look through, there's excellent programs, especially kinesiology and sport is, top 5 in the world. Public health has some unique programs. Pharmacy is ranked very well, as is nursing. So yeah, please do explore the website for the program that would be the best fit for you. A little bit about the facilities here on campus. I had mentioned the National Institute for Nanotechnology and the Science Center, the Clinical Health Academy. We also have Canada's second largest library collection here on campus. We have hundreds of technologically advanced classrooms, labs. Like I said, we have the teaching hospital. I know a lot of people are looking for STEM-related subjects, but we also have an excellent Faculty of Arts that has programs in things like drama and theater and art and design. So the picture here is one of the best theater training facilities in Canada, our Tim Center for the Arts. So we support kind of all aspects, even in the humanities for research areas. So in terms of housing on campus, there are 13 different residences. If students apply before April 30th, because most programs start in September, you're guaranteed a housing offer. There's a lot of variety. If you want to have your own room, your own suite, there's that option. If you want to save some money and stay with a roommate, there's an option for that as well, where you'll be paired up with someone typically like around your own age or also in a graduate program. And there's also residences where you have the option of opting into a meal plan, where you can access a lot of the different cafeterias and restaurants here on campus if you're going to be busy and don't have time for cooking. So a little bit about campus life here. I know it's important. You're going to, coming for studies and research. It's important to balance that out as well. So there are 400 different student clubs here on campus. So whatever your hobby or interest may be, there's pretty much a guarantee there will be someone here on campus with similar interests. We have sports and recreation facilities here on campus for students to access for free. Easy subway access, so if you need to get to a different area of the city, there's 2 train stations here on campus. There's also a major bus station hub here on campus as well. 24-hour study spaces are available. Like I said, we have lots of art, concerts, theater. There's tons of different galleries and museums here on campus for students to access. We have a students' union, a graduate students' union specifically for grad students. And we have an international services center to serve all the international students. They have regulated immigration advisors if you need any advice or tips for immigration documents. They also plan a lot of events. They have an English conversation club. They plan trips to other areas of Alberta. So it's a good way to connect with other international students on campus. So some of the supports here on campus that would be available to you. We do have an English language school. So if you are concerned about what your English level is at right now, if you think you'll need to upgrade, we do have courses that you would be able to access. depending on what level you're at. Most of their courses start at like an intermediate level of English. We do have a Student Success Center, so they offer a variety of different workshops, primarily related to academics. So it could be things like how to write a thesis proposal, or presentation skills if you're going to a conference, or creating a poster to kind of summarize your research. So things like that to kind of support you throughout your academic program. We do have a center for writers as well. So they also have workshops and writing groups, but then they also have, individual tutors. So if you are just looking for someone to help review your work, review your writing, give you some suggestions on how to improve it, that's a free service that you can access here on campus. We do have accessibility services as well. If you do need extra supports, or if there's a medical condition or something like that where it's going to impact your academics, there are supports here on campus to help you to make sure that you're still successful in your program. We have a health center here on campus, so instead of having to worry about leaving campus if you need to see a doctor or anything, those services are available for you here. There's also a pharmacy if you need to get medication. As part of your tuition and non-instructional fees, there is health and dental insurance included in that cost. There's free counseling services here on campus. We have interfaith leaders from a variety of different religions and faiths that students can meet with. Campus food bank, and we also have a very large Latin American Students Association here on campus. So they're quite active, and they plan a lot of events and activities for students, especially those that are just arriving in town. So they're a good support network. Now, a little bit about the different graduate degrees we offer. So for master's programs, it's typically two main programs. So there's the thesis-based master's program and a course-based. So with thesis-based, you're going to do a little bit of coursework, so usually 1 or 2 semesters, and those courses are going to be decided on with your supervising professor here, and they're going to be courses that are going to be helpful for your future research, right? They're going to kind of give you a good base knowledge to work with. And then once you're done those courses, then you work towards your research and your thesis. So typically, a thesis-based master's, I would say, takes at least 2 years is the average. Some students need longer. It really depends on how smoothly your research goes. There's also course-based masters. So those are typically shorter master's programs. Some programs you can get them done in a year. It really depends which area you want to study. But those are exclusively just coursework, and then you just have a small final project at the end. So to enter master's degree programs, you do typically need a bachelor program in a similar type of area. For doctoral degrees, so PhDs, those are typically always research thesis-based. Same type of thing. You're going to do at least 1 year of coursework, those courses that are going to help you in your research. And then you're going to work towards your candidacy exam and thesis defense. Normally, I would say on average, 4 years is the time it should take to do a PhD, but it can range anywhere between 4 to 6. Again, it really depends on the research project you have and how much time it's going to take to get through that. For doctoral degrees, typically you should have a master's degree in that type of area as well. Now, some things that you should consider before you apply for a graduate program. Is it necessary to find a supervisor before you apply? If you are planning to do a course-based master's, typically this isn't needed. A supervisor is typically someone who is going to be supervising your research, right? Someone who is a specialist in that area that can guide you through your research program. So if you are wanting to do a research-based graduate program, it is an important step to do some research on who the professors are here that are doing research in your area, because it is important to find one who agrees to supervise your program before you apply. I don't want you spending $100 on a graduate application if there's actually no professor here in your research area or who has availability or space. So that's an important thing to consider before you apply. Another thing to consider are things like extra tests. So a lot of people ask, do they need to write the GRE or the GMAT test? While it's very common in places like the United States, it's not as common here, but we do have a few programs that do ask for these tests. For example, it is mandatory for admission to business to have one of those tests. And some of our more popular programs that get a lot of applications, so for example, economics, they will ask for a GRE test score. But there's very few of our programs that require it. But it's good to check the department website before applying so that you know all the admission requirements. Start dates. I can say with certainty that September is the most popular start date here for graduate programs. There are some departments that will consider other start dates like January or May. But not all. And it's really dependent on the professor as well and their availability. So chances are most will want you to start in September, but there are some programs that will consider January admissions as well. And conditional admissions. So some students ask, can I still be considered for admission if I don't have my English score yet and I want to submit it later? Some departments will consider that. It's something to discuss with a supervising professor. I would say most would like applicants to meet all of the admission requirements when they apply. But if you have a plan in place as to when you're going to be able to meet those requirements, they might consider a conditional admission, especially for those of you who might be considering applying for a scholarship and maybe you need an admission letter by a certain date to apply. Those are things that they might show some flexibility on. Now, I had mentioned before about finding a supervising professor. So some things to consider. Be sure to read the profiles of all the professors in your research area to determine which one you want to do research with. And it should be a professor that, that their research area is somewhat connected to what you might have some knowledge and experience in, and you just want to expand on that further. You should have a bit of a background in it. And make sure that your research area is closely connected with what they are doing. If you're contacting professors, some documents that you should consider emailing to them are your CV, copies of your university transcripts showing all of your grades for all your courses, an English language test score, and then a statement of intent, which I will get to on the next slide about what that's about. If you're intending to apply for a scholarship from your home country, contact Caldo because they will connect you with myself or other universities, and we can actually, at the University of Alberta, we can help you find that supervising professor. We have these connections with the professors already, so we can just make that initial introduction because sometimes professors can be very busy and they might not be able to respond to all the email requests they get for supervision. So if you connect with myself, then myself and my colleague can kind of help you connect with a prospective supervisor. So a statement of intent, like I said, this is important to send a professor when you're trying to find someone for supervision. It's one of the most important documents, and it's important to take time in writing it. It should be 1 to 2 pages, and it should cover some of these questions, like why you want to work with that specific professor, what about their research interests you, how are your interests related, how your background and experience is going to be able to contribute to that research group, and your goals after completing graduate studies. So what you want to do after. One of the things I would highly recommend is not writing just one general statement for all professors. They get those a lot. And so it's important that your statement really stands out from the crowd. So that's why I would, you can have most of the statement is similar content, but have at least one paragraph that's tailored to that professor and their research area. You can maybe mention some publications they've done that you read or that interest you, things like that. Now, in terms of admission requirements, these are just the absolute minimum. So they're going to look at your last 2 years of full-time studies, and you should have a minimum GPA of 3 out of 4 during those 2 years. And you can see by country what that is the equivalent to, because everyone has different grading scales. And then in terms of minimum English requirement, the absolute minimum for IELTS is a 6.5, and typically they're going to look for a 5 on each band. For the Toefl, I know most people just do the internet test now, and the minimum score for that is an 88 with at least 20 on each band. Now, like I said, these are the minimum standards that our Faculty of Graduate Studies sets. Keep in mind, some departments here might have higher requirements. So that's why it's important to go to the website of the department that you want to apply to, just to kind of review their policies and requirements. Because, some programs that have, limited spaces and are very competitive, they might ask for a higher English score or a higher GPA. So especially for programs that are related to things like health and medicine, they often want to see a higher English score, or teaching English, they'll want to see a higher English score as well. So those are just the bare minimum requirements. Now, in terms of applying, like I said, be sure to review the website of the department you want to apply to. Find a supervising professor if you want to do research, or contact myself if you want some help to find a supervising professor. I can help you with that if you're going to be sponsored for your program. The deadlines really vary by program. Some programs in things like education and arts and humanities have quite early deadlines, like December, January. But then we have other programs in medicine and engineering that are accepting until May. So it really kind of varies. So it'll be important that you check the website for that. You submit your application online, upload all of your documents online as PDFs as well, things like your transcripts, your CV. And then if you are offered admission, you will receive an admission letter through your online application portal. And once you have that, then you can apply for your study permit to come to Canada. So typical required documents that you'll need, because it's important if you are planning to apply, even at multiple universities, to get some of these things in advance, because some of them might take some time. And I'm referring to, if you have your university transcripts and degree certificates, if they were issued in Spanish or Portuguese, you'll have to have them officially translated to English. So we'll need to see both, a copy of the original language and the English translation. We also need to see a copy of an English test score, the statement of research intent, and you typically need to have 3 references. So just submitting the names and email addresses of your references, and then we'll send them a form to fill out and return back to us to complete that portion. And like I said, some departments will have additional requirements, like business will ask for either the GMAT or GRE. Some departments that have a lot of writing involved, like English and film studies or modern languages and cultural studies, they might ask to see a writing sample as well in English language. So those are some things to consider. So that's all I have. I'm with the sponsored student program here at the University of Alberta. So what that means is if you are planning to apply for a scholarship from your home country, whether it's CONACYT in Mexico or Colfuturo in Colombia or any of those scholarship programs, I'm kind of here to kind of help you through the process because we have lots of good connections through CALDO with all the scholarship programs. So whether you are interested in applying for one of those scholarships or not, still feel free to send me an email, and I can help you with any inquiries you may have. But I guess I'll turn it back over and see if we have any questions. So I know it looks like some of you are asking for more information about specific research areas and programs. Feel free, it might be easier if you just send me an email and then I can send you the appropriate links for the departments here on campus that would be relevant for you. So I see a question here about taking the GRE if you are from a university that's not in Canada. Like I said, not a lot of departments here ask for it, but I can say that the economics department does require the GRE. So that is something to take into account. Even if you will have a scholarship or funding. In terms of funding, that's something I can briefly touch on. If you aren't planning on applying for a scholarship from your home country, funding here in Canada, at least for the University of Alberta, it's really dependent on who your supervising professor will be. So, you know, because each professor gets a certain amount of funding, they apply for different grants. It depends on how many graduate students they're already funding. So if you're not approved for a scholarship from your home country, the next option is to then ask the professor here who agrees to supervise you if they have any funding opportunities. There's no set standard funding policy. Every department is different and every professor has different levels of funding. And Mario, I see your question about bringing your family with you as well. Yes, we have lots of graduate students that have their spouse and children here. So that is a possibility. You know, if you're going to stay here for a full PhD program, healthcare here in Alberta is free. And for school-age children as well, there's no fees for school. It's only if children are under the age of 5 and you have to pay for daycare, that's where it can get quite expensive. But everything else is free. Francisco, I see your question about funding. And that sometimes the supervisors provide, but not always. Generally, funding is kind of determined by the individual professor and department. There are sometimes scholarships available. but normally your department will have to nominate you for those types of scholarships. And some of the funding as well might come through working as a teaching assistant or research assistant. So you can apply for various positions like that in your department, and those might allow for some additional funding as well. Okay. So academic requirements, Omar, I think we reviewed that, but feel free to email me if you have more questions about your specific department. Yeah, if you have questions about a very specific program, feel free just to email me, because I'll have to look them up for every individual department, and then I can send you the link. Business management, yes, we do have that program. Coming as a research stay, that is a possibility. I'd say we get more students who are in PhD programs who come for research days, but there are some master's students who come for very short-term research stay. For the cost, no, if you're coming as a visitor and only doing research, not taking any courses or anything like that, there won't be any tuition costs. There might be some other minor fees involved for, things like your health insurance and things like that. But the main expense, if you were to come for a research day, would just be your cost of living. Which in Edmonton, I would say in terms of Canadian dollars, you should be budgeting at least, I would say on average, $1,800 a month for cost of living. But yes, that is a possibility to come for a research stay. But the process to do that, it's kind of the same thing. You have to contact professors to first find one who is interested in supervising your research stay. So you'll still have to write kind of a statement of research intent in which you explain what you want to accomplish during that short-term stay. Christian, yes. Argentina, yes, you're okay to apply. Those are just some examples of countries in different grading scales. So yes, please feel free to pursue an application if you'd like. If you have an academic score, Omar, that's less than the minimum requirement listed, it's not impossible for you to be considered. It will depend on who your supervising professor here will be and if they are willing to advocate for you. So if they feel like you have maybe strong work experience and lots of years of work experience that will contribute, they might consider that. But again, it's really up to the supervising professor and their willingness to push for your application to be considered. So when you write your statement of research intent, it might be a good idea to explain, that yes, your average is a little bit below the minimum, but this is why, and these are the other things you should consider why I would be a very good student. Okay. Finding a job and doing a graduate program. Yes, there's lots of students here on campus that work part-time while studying as well. But typically, I would say most graduate students, their part-time work is within their departments. So either working as a teaching assistant or research assistant. But it's really dependent on how much free time you think you will have. It's going to be different for every student because you're all doing different research projects and the intensity is going to be different. But it is possible. Here in Canada, when you get a study permit to study in Canada, if you are in a full-time program, you are allowed to work for a maximum of 20 hours per week on or off campus. So it is possible to do that. In terms of where to find supervisors and their areas of research, you're just gonna, go to the website, ualberta.ca, and you should be able to find a link for all the programs, all the faculties. If you can't find the specific program that you want to study in, just feel free to send me an email and I can send you the link for that. Minimum grade for GRE. Flavio, I believe it's in the 80th percentile, but feel free again for these specific program questions, just email me and I can send you that information. Application documents, okay. No, so for the English translations, Andres, those have to be done by an official translator. So that translator will have to put their stamp and seal, saying that they did the translation. But for the other documents, don't mail in any originals or, notarized copies. It's only if you are offered admission. When you come to start your program, just bring those original documents with you, just so our Faculty of Graduate Studies can see them, confirm that they're original, and they will give those back to you. So there's no need to go through doing certified copies or anything like that. So there's a question here about how long it takes the department to make admission decisions. That's a very difficult question to answer because every single department here is different. They have their own processes, their own procedures. Some wait until after the deadline once they receive all applications, and then they take 1 or 2 months to kind of go through them. Some kind of make decisions as they go, as they receive applications. So it's really different for each department. The more prepared you are and have everything submitted and everything done and all your documents done, the quicker that they can review your application, make a decision. But like I said, it's hard to give an answer as to how many days. It's really quite dependent. Kenneth, so there's a question here about needing to take Toefl. No, if you have a degree from a country where the main official language is English, no, there's no need to submit a Toefl exam. So your degree from the USA will be okay. Sebastian, so in terms of your funding question, a supervisor can kind of determine how much funding they have available to give you. But the department has their policies on what is a minimum funding requirement for students. So if you are given an admission offer and they want to make you a funding offer as well, they will tell you exactly how much, what their department policy is in terms of funding. Do you need to have a scientific publication if you're an undergraduate student? If you're applying to a master's program, no, it's not necessary that you have a publication in your undergraduate program. It's quite rare. Even in Canada here, there aren't a lot of undergraduate students that have publications at that point. Karen, your question about contacting a potential supervisor. This will depend. So my department only works with students who have scholarships from their home countries. So if that's the case for you, I would recommend contacting me and we can kind of introduce you to the professor. If you are planning on if you're going to seek funding from the university, then you will have to contact the professor directly yourself, just because that's kind of out of the scope of my program and what we do. But yeah, I would recommend it. We work with a lot of professors here on campus, and so sometimes we might know some that are looking for students and which ones are full. So feel free to contact me. Juan, your question about research experience for an MSc, no, it's not necessary. They kind of expect that undergraduate students aren't really going to have much research experience. Felix, we do offer programs in language teaching. So we do have programs that are specific to teaching English as an additional language. We do have another department here on campus that is modern languages and cultural studies. So that's where there's other languages, but not really a focus on teaching those languages. The only one that's really focused on language teaching is for the English. Juan Nicholas, in terms of when you contact professors, you don't have to have a specific research project in mind. You should just have a general idea of what area you want to focus on. So sometimes professors might already have a project that they need to recruit students for. But I would say keep it very somewhat general to begin with. And then if the professor expresses some interest, then your subsequent discussions can talk about more how to narrow down what the project will be. And sometimes some students don't know what their research project is really going to be until after they're here and they've started taking some courses and they get some ideas. So Raquel, for reviewing the CV and statement, if you're, like I said, my program does do that for students who will have scholarships from their home countries. So if that's the case for you, feel free to email me those documents and myself and my colleagues can review them for you and let you know if we have any suggestions for improvement. For everyone else, we do have a program here on campus. It's the Career Center. So if you go to ualberta.ca and then in the search function, just put the Career Center, they do have a lot of good resources on there about, CV formats, especially in a Canadian context, and statement of research intent as well. Okay, and I think I've already touched on teaching assistantship programs. Felix, your question about your master's is in English language teaching. If that master's was from a university in Mexico, you will still unfortunately need to provide a Toefl, because they will need to see a higher English Toefl score. Diego, your question about having a professor, if that guarantees admission, not necessarily. The professor doesn't make the final admission decisions, but it does help your application if you have a professor who has agreed to supervise you. So the likelihood of that leading to admission is quite good, but it's not guaranteed, because once the professor approves of that application, it then goes to a separate committee that reviews all the applications in the department, and they will then make a final decision. And then it goes to another program that makes sure that all your documents are good and everything like that before they will issue admission. And Jim, in terms of your question about reference letters, They prefer to see like a mix of reference letters. So at least one should be an academic reference. But if you do have a reference letter related to work experience, that's helpful as well. So yeah, it's up to you. Everyone has different experiences. So, but it's helpful if you can have a mix if it's possible. Okay, Kenneth, about the grades, if you're applying to a PhD program, they're going to look at your last 2 full-time years of courses. So if you did a 2-year master's program, they're going to just focus on your master's. If you had a 1-year master's, then they're going to look at that 1-year master's and then your last year of your undergraduate program. So they're only just focused on the most recent two years of your studies. Yes, everyone, if you want to watch the presentation again, this is recorded and will be posted on the Caldo YouTube link. So Christian, I see your question about if you can apply directly to a PhD instead of an MSc. I've seen it happen before. It really depends. You should have really high grades in your undergraduate, maybe some research experience. The research experience is pretty essential if you want to do a PhD. Again, it really depends on the supervising professor and then the graduate committee of the department. So you can certainly try. You'll have to make a case for yourself as to why you feel like you would be a strong candidate for the PhD program. So yeah, it's not impossible, but it is definitely tougher if you don't already have a master's degree. So one, your question about if you don't get sponsorship, that if you'll still get admission, again, it will be dependent on the professor here who agrees to supervise you in the department. I have seen, sometimes professors, they might be at their maximum capacity for funding. And so the only way they can take a new student is if that student comes with their own funding. So sometimes they will issue admission letters on the condition that you come with a scholarship. If you don't get approved for the scholarship, I have seen cases where a professor and department will find another way. If they really want you to come, they might see if there's other funding that they can access for you. It's not guaranteed. It's kind of, you just have to wait for that time to come and see if the possibility is there. Hi, Carlos. I see your question about applying for scholarships from U Alberta if you already have CONA-CEIT. Yes, you can certainly apply for them. Whether you're approved for them or not, again, it will depend on the individual department, how much funding they have available, how many other students are in their department that don't have any scholarships. So it's hard to say. It's dependent on the department you would be studying in. But I have seen other CONA-CEIT students working as TAs or RAs just for some additional funds as well. Maybe not getting as many hours as some of the other students that don't have scholarships, but those opportunities are there. It's just not guaranteed that you would be eligible for them. Okay, I think that's it. That's the end of the questions. Like I said, though, if anything comes up, if you have any other questions, especially about specific programs, feel free to just send me an email directly, and I'd be happy to answer them or point you in the right direction as to where you can find that answer.